Put the mic is on. Okay. Yeah.
Welcome, everybody. 6:02 p.m. on Wednesday, March 19th, and I'd like to call this meeting to order of the Arts and Culture Board. Can we please have a roll call?
Annabelle? Hold on, let me go up. Oh. Yeah, Annabelle? Melissa? Here. Candace? Okay. Rose?
Here.
Fabiana?
Here.
And Andrea?
Here.
Oh, okay. Yours?
Okay.
Oh, okay.
So we have a quorum, this meeting to order, and next on the item on the agenda is approval of minutes. Everybody's had a chance to review the minutes from last meeting. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes of February 19th?
I second.
Minutes have been approved. Now we have citizen comment period with the Arts and Culture Board. We welcome comments from citizens. Anyone wishing to speak is encouraged to sign in before the meeting begins. And you all are providing an opportunity to speak during this time period on any agenda item or any other matter concerning the Arts and Culture Board. We have a 3-minute time limit. Is there anybody here? Don't see anybody here to speak, so we will close that section of our agenda. And next, we will have the staff reports and presentations. I believe that is Melissa, the Chief Development Officer.
Just read that.
She will receive a report, hold a discussion, and provide staff direction regarding the strategy for incorporating art installations within roundabouts, enhancing the aesthetic, cultural, and functional value of city roadways.
All right, well, Melissa's not here, so you got me instead. So most of you don't know me, but I'm Kayla Sharp, senior planner. And I'm just kind of introducing the fact for Melissa. We have Marissa here that is going to be doing the presentation.
All right. This is really similar to the presentation that y'all saw last month, but we have a little bit of new information to present on, like midway through the presentation, about the sizing of some of the roundabouts and some of what we've learned about sort of the clear area that we need to keep clear, so we can start to kind of size some of these areas for putting it out to artists. This is Adriana from our office as well. She's the landscape architect. She's just being held hostage by me today because we came from College Station, so she had to come along with me today. So these are, again, the roundabouts that we are looking at incorporating public art. So we'll run through some of these quickly. We've got roundabout number 3 at Kohlers and Cromwell, roundabout number 4 at Windy Hill and Cherrywood, which we actually submitted drawings for last week. And we have a landscape strategy for that roundabout that will allow for landscape essentially to come out of the documents to allow for art to be added in. The civil engineer is moving a little bit faster than we could move. And so we do have a strategy for that one. So that one's in at the city right now for review. Then we've got Old Stagecoach and Six Creeks, which is this one out west. We've got Beebe and Dacey, which is here. And then Dacey and Bunton Creek, which is right here. Any questions on locations? These have not changed since the last time. So we had talked about the different ways that we could go about this, incorporating art and environmental graphics into these. Many of these are from the Bend, Oregon example that we sent the link to last time. And so just kind of showing that art and environmental graphics can take many shapes and forms in these roundabouts. And we had talked about kind of themes last time and deciding that rather than going with a theme, kind of opening and putting out an open call to artists and letting them kind of interpret the area and what is important to them would be a good way to go about this. So one thing we did not have when we presented last time is sort of this, these roundabout design calculations that the civil engineer gives to us. And this is what dictates, based on a series of mathematical equations, including speed, angles, et cetera, that allow for or require, per AASHTO standards, a clear area. So nothing above 3 feet can happen in between the curb of the roundabout. So this is the plan view of the roundabout. This is a section view of the roundabout. So nothing can occur between the curb and this red line that is taller than 3 feet. And so that allows, as you're kind of driving into the roundabout and you're making your right, that you can see along the edge incoming traffic that's coming at you. There has been a lot of research that has been done about having items in the middle of this, whether that is grade change, whether that is, as we saw in many of the examples, public art, signage, et cetera. There's been a lot of research about that current research actually shows that the less you can see directly through the roundabout, the better, that it actually slows traffic enough for everything to function appropriately. So each of these roundabouts will have a different clear area. The one that we're working on that we looked at last week, which was the Windy Hill roundabout, it is only 3 sided. So it doesn't have a perfect circle of clear area. It's got sort of this very unique shape. Luckily for most of the roundabouts, the majority of the clear area is made up of this kind of skirt of paving that's required so that the trucks that make a little bit wider turns, our new student drivers, et cetera, that end up popping up onto the curb, don't hit anything in there. So that skirt makes up a large part of those areas. You'll also see that we do have plants within that area. We're just using ground cover planting, low plantings like Zexmania, Lantana that aren't going to get above that 3 feet, so you can maintain that visual acuity. So things like anything lower than 3 feet can be included in that clear area requirement.
Is that a normal height curve, or are they higher or lower than a normal?
It's a standard for this roundabout, and for many of them, I have a feeling it will be a standard 6-inch curve.
Okay.
With this section here illustrates standard 6-inch. So this is the roundabout that I had mentioned that we turned into the city last week. So this presentation was done 2 weeks ago. So we're still kind of playing catch up with this one. But as you can see, this one is a little bit different because it is only 3 directions. But it has the skirt within it. And so this is the first one that we'll be letting out for public art. Like I said, we have it in with the city right now with the strategy that we currently show this fully planted, but we know that we can easily take out sort of like a module of planting and include any artwork that would go in. You know, if it wanted to be further this way or further that way or not centered in the roundabout, the landscape is designed so that we can kind of take out a chunk of it really easily and incorporate the artwork in there. This one does have a couple encumbrances in it. It's hard to see in this one. We have a gas line that runs through it. And we also, I believe, have a storm line that runs through the middle of this. So that's something that we'll have to keep in mind when we look at footing sizes for any of the artwork. So just some things that we'll have to make sure are included in our brief to the artist on how deep those things can go into the ground. Design timeline has remained mostly unchanged. There's been a bit of skipping around, but it doesn't affect any of the art roundabouts. Some of these over here off of Lehman and Kyle Parkway came online a little bit quicker than we had thought, but those are all landscape roundabouts. So none of those include any of the art. So I think we're looking probably at roundabout number 3, roundabout number 4 being the quickest ones that we want to put out for calls to artists. Roundabout number 4 is pretty much ready to go. We have the area outlined where public art can be incorporated into that one. And we have a request into the civil team for roundabout number 3 to send us all those documents and send that preliminary the RAD calculation for that one as well.
So which one was 3? Can you, what was the name of that one?
That is Cromwell and Kohlers.
So would that be considered, I heard you talking about signs and being like a
The gateway.
gateway, is that considered a gateway there?
No, that one is already earmarked for art. The ones that are earmarked for signage to have in them have an S in them. So this one here, this one here, this one here, this one here. Any other questions on timeline? Or I really kind of sped through this quickly. Are there any questions about the design calculations that we were given for these?
Are there any height restrictions for the piece once it's beyond the 3 feet?
Yeah, once it's outside the clear zone. Now we have in this particular one, again, this is just this was the one at BB and BB and 15. BB and Daisy. So that this is one that we've already turned in. It is a landscape only one. We have 3 very large trees planned for that roundabout right now, and the roundabout itself also has some grade change associated with it to elevate the area and provide some visual interest. So based on what we have been told so far, no, there's no restrictions. Any other questions about that? All right, our next piece of stakeholder engagement is to meet with the Parks Board on March 31st. We are presenting a very similar presentation to this. They have not seen this before, so they're getting more of the presentation that I gave last time. We've added in the roundabout calculation stuff as well, so it's a very similar presentation to what y'all are getting today, just to provide their input about all of the roundabouts as a strategy, not just the art specific ones. And then we're planning on going back to City Council on April 15th because we will have gotten comments back from the city on the roundabouts we've designed thus far at that point. So we should have a really concise strategy on how all of these are more unified at that point. Any questions or comments? And I'm a little ignorant on the process of this. I'm not sure who's going to be writing the artist briefs, if that's the city's office with input from y'all. I know I had talked to Melissa too about budgets for each of the pieces. So she was doing a little bit of research on that as well.
Yeah, definitely, from the scope component, that's gonna be something that staff will definitely seek feedback from the board as far as what that part. I think last time we talked about certain themes, and really perspectives of what do we want this art to feel like or look like, whatever those components may be. So it will be something that we definitely need to at least get a general consensus on some type of scope that we want to incorporate. That way we can take that further to park board, to council. It says, yeah, we actually did meet with the Arts and Cultural Committee. We went to them twice. Here's what they're thinking for the one in Coolers and Cromwell, and then the one on Windy Hill. Maybe that's something that we can discuss right now and see if there's any conversation or direction on what that scope may be now that we know the parameters, at least for number 4, which is Windy Hill, that says we have to have those certain restrictions and we have constraints with the gas line and other lines that exist. Maybe we can't install pedestal because the foundation needs to be certain depth. Maybe needs to be something surface level. I'm not really sure. I think those are conversations more that we're gonna have to provide all those various details to the artists themselves to say, here's the constraints, but ultimately here's a scope, similar like the RFP that we're gonna talk about today. Here's what it is that we want, and it's up to the artist to then submit how they view that scope, and how they get inspired to submit a piece of art for our consideration. But truly, the process will be us putting that out for RFP, RFQ, and vetting it through the committee, creating the task force similar to the other one that we did, and then start selecting that. Move forward, recommendation to council.
I did a little bit of research. I'm an art consultant in my regular job, so I'm like, oh, let me look into this kind of thing. And I looked into the Bend, Oregon, and I saw that Sarasota, Florida also had a similar project with roundabouts and artwork. And I also came across a designer and photographer that's based out of Spain that had like studied roundabout sculptures, and they have a whole Instagram page on getting like over 1,000 roundabouts around the world, you know, and so I found that pretty interesting, and I thought a quote from her was really interesting. It says, "Through a great roundabout, you can roughly know the culture of this city. It's the city's monument and represents the character of this place. It's a clue of what they are famous for, local products, what happened, you know, there in history. And some are pretty, some are weird, some are humorous. So I thought that was kind of interesting, you know, their take on that. And I know with the last RFP, since I was on the task force, I felt like the RFP request was a bit vague. And so some of the artists, I could tell when they submitted their proposals, they researched a little bit about Kyle, but not, you know, too much. So I thought it might be nice to come from the Arts and Cultural Board to kind of maybe give them prompts of what we might be interested in. And I kind of researched on, you know, what that typically looks like for a city. And it could be on, you know, like we talked about last month, flora and fauna. It could be evoking nature in that area. It could be kinetic art, you know, wind, solar, whatnot. And then, or it could represent landmarks or events or people, you know, and I was looking up the history of Kyle and, you know, things that relate to the railroad between Austin and San Antonio and the founders and the, you know, historic sites like the oak tree and things like that. So I thought maybe if we can include that in the RFP, it might get a better grab at certain artists who are like, oh, I'm interested in this. I create sculptures that fall into this category. I feel like we might get a better grab. Yeah, submissions. So anyhow, that's kind of what I came up with, and I didn't know. I had the same question as you, like, who's going to be running this? Is it Parks and Board that, you know, runs this, and then they meet with the task force or whatnot, or are we running on a consultant, or, you know, and are they working with the landscape architect, and who's going to deal with all the, you know, the footing and construction and all that. So,
Yeah.
they're my thoughts.
Parks and Rec is gonna be the folks that are gonna be driving this project.
Okay.
So as far as having a consultant come in and selecting the art recurring, I know, as you know, there's consultants that do that, that incorporate that. So whether that's something that the city wants to do, that's more of a council decision.
Mhm.
But staff is definitely capable of us going through the RFQ process and us also just going ahead and project managing some of those in correlation
Right.
with the project engineers from our engineering team that are going to be doing that. So it's very well in our wheelhouse. I have experience installing art in roundabouts as well, so it's not something that at least is new on my end. Probably new to the team and to Kyle as a whole, but that's definitely something that we can do.
Yeah, and I also thought that, I didn't know if like a budget or a theme might help move the process along quicker. With getting submissions, I mean, cause there's sculptural artists out there that can do something for 50 grand, millions of dollars, like, we don't wanna get submissions where we're having to filter through like, oh, well, the city's not gonna approve that, cause it's way too expensive, and I don't know if the
Yeah.
community is gonna look at that as like, oh, they're all the board is doing is just spending our money, like, why are we wasting our money on this, kind of thing, so.
Yeah, I don't know if we'll have the answer to the budget, today. That can definitely be something that we can go back to the engineering team and see what's estimated or what do they have factored in for this. Or so I'm not sure if you know the level of context on the back end, if there's any itemized line item that's just an allowance for art. So that'll be something that we'll have to get further information on. But for sure, I agree with you as far as the scope itself. That is something that will speed the process up if we go ahead and understand what it is that we're trying to get out of these first two sculptures. Or these first two art pieces, and start writing the scope and start working with a procurement team, because it does take a little bit of time to put that together on the back end. Then get it to council, to advertise and so forth, so, and knowing that we're going to park, to council, is that April 15th? I'd like to sort of have direction by then, let them know what next steps are.
Yeah.
So especially that we don't have another meeting until maybe after April 15th, it will be helpful for us to know a scope, or at least get an idea of what we're thinking, and even if it's like 2 or 3 options from you guys, and
Yeah,
we can let council select 1, 3 that you feel comfortable, 2 that you feel comfortable with. That'll be my recommendation.
It's just tough to start off with, because I don't think Kyle knows who it is or what they want their brand.
Yeah, I mean,
to be.
also-
I know we have the railroad, but I just don't see a lot of people latching on to that.
Especially because these two roundabouts are a little bit
further,
right. If it was here,
yeah.
it makes
Right.
sense. But they're a little further away.
Does anybody know anything about that Windy Hill and Cherry, like, what is that story behind that neighborhood, or,
That's the
who first settled there, like, what?
Yeah, I
is
mean,
it?
that one's next to the Amberwood neighborhood, and adjacent to the Dacey family property. So I know there is a lot of history there, especially with the Dacey family property.
So, I mean, is there something related to the Dacey family to, would people be upset about honoring that, in a
Right,
way, or?
right.
I was just wondering that the population, the change in population, that it's grown so so fast. Would a lot of people know the history? Would there be little records giving the history at the roundabout? Cause I'm new, I just moved here, it'll be 3 years in June, and all these subdivisions, people are coming from Austin, all different places, so. Do we wanna educate people on the history of Kyle, or do we wanna create history because of the new population?
And I would say there is dedicated areas that are appropriate for telling the history of Kyle, park spaces or something that's a little bit more walkable for you to walk and learn, rather than it being something that you drive by.
Right.
So that is, at least my opinion, But that's one component that we're looking at. Various walk in the parks where you have, art walks or you incorporate murals along the system itself that you can incorporate in the trail system as an example. That you have different areas to go, so that's how I would probably focus in on the history aspect, not to say you can't feature anything about, but you're right, I mean, I'm newer to the city as well, but even then, I know there's a lot of rich history, and actually last night at council, there was, the mayor put an item together for a historical archive of a lot of our data and information that the city has. He has probably like 20 boxes in his office located over at the, public safety center that just have a lot of information. So maybe as we start digging a little bit deeper, some of those, maybe those can be showcased and some of our parks or some of the public right of ways. So just, I guess my 2 cents on that. I'm not truly familiar with Windy Hill as a whole, but it's not to say that it has to be a theme for that area. I mean, it could be something abstract, it could just be kinetic, it could just be, hey, that's cool. The other location, Colors of Cromwell, I mean, that is more closer, Kayla, you probably, the brick and mortar district, I believe.
Yeah, that one's kind of the gateway into the brick and mortar district. I'm not sure how familiar y'all are with,
Right next
the
to Heroes
Sprouts
Memorial.
that's being built. That's, one of the main ways to get to that Sprouts is kind of an entrance into, what will hopefully become kind of more of an urban mixed use, walkable, shopping center. Restaurants, retail, offices, things like that.
Maybe more modern, like.
And
Mhm.
that's not next to the performing center, is it?
Yes,
Is it
so-
is it that roundabout there?
So the intersection right now where you would turn in to go to the pack, that's where that will be going.
And so you have Veterans Park, right? Heroes
Right.
Memorial,
Yes.
you have Meredith Park. You have all that area that maybe you could fit it towards a theme. I know we do have an RFP to talk about for our piece of art that's being proposed for Lavergne already. But how do we want to combine that? Do you want to separate? I mean, those are some complementary aspects that we can look at. And again, we don't have to stick to one. We can come up with 2 or 3, 4 options up to you guys.
I guess like with the Windy Hill and the Cherry one, I guess something that a kid would, the people that live there are gonna be driving around it. You don't wanna, something that you might think, whether it's, abstract or not, it's still something that might speak to them versus, oh, this definitely, you put up something like a train there and they're gonna go like, we don't want a train.
There's not a
You know what I mean? Yeah. So,
I believe the Windy Hill is probably one of the first streets when you get into Kyle, so like when you exit I-35, you take a left on Kyle, so it'll, essentially it's like the first roundabout as you get into Kyle. Like the first one that you hit, the hill, so that could be, maybe something for us, like a gateway, or like Kyle, there's a lot of homes there too.
It's also city limits if you're going east-west. That's kind of where city limits start or end.
I think we have some gateways for that, I believe at certain intersections, if I'm not mistaken. Do we not, specific to those monument signage?
Yeah, we have signage at,
That's what
It's a
that's
little further
what the
down.
S's are. Those are gonna be those entryways into the city, so there's, I guess, 3 different components. There's your monument signage that says, yes, welcome to Kyle, and key segments. You have your art component, and then you have your general landscape component.
don't have the theme of those signages, is that been set? Is that kind of consistent or just?
it will be consistent and, working with the existing Kyle branding, but it has not been set yet.
It's
So we
hard.
think, yeah, it is.
It's like, hey, anything, but then, so, I know it's not one of those.
Art is very subjective too, right?
Yeah.
So it's one of those that I understand having to try to think about, hey, how's the community gonna take this? I mean, the beauty about art is that it means something to somebody different, it's, I could look at it one way, Melissa could look at it another way, and I'm like, oh, I didn't see that. So it's just one of those aspects that it's, to me, it's the beauty of it.
When I think the particular challenge. I put this. Is that Kyle is redefining its identity, because when I moved here, it was still a capital. And we're undoing that, right? So, like, when I think about Austin, I think Austin has, and obviously it's apples to oranges, Austin is like a bigger metropolis, but like. There's a lot that they can lean on in terms of identity that I think when they put out RFPs for art, it's easier. For artists to conceptualize, because they're like, music capital, barbecue, like F1 if we wanna go corporate, so I think. That's kind of the challenge. When I think about the RFPs we put out, because you're right, there isn't specificity, but I also think we haven't nailed down. What this like new cultural identity is for the city. So I think if we can't conceptualize it, an artist is also gonna be like. What is it?
And that's why a lot of the safe bets are usually like the flora and
Yeah.
fauna,
Mhm.
just because you're talking about the region.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a very common theme, and I would expect that's one of y'all's items is celebrate the flora and fauna of Kyle. It's just a matter of coming up with two others.
I think that's interesting, the quote that you read from the art. I mean, that to me sort of seemed almost like a brief, that it's something that needs to celebrate the place that it's in.
Right.
And, I've had some very interesting, we did a fire station off of 1626. That they incorporated art in public places for, and when you heard the brief from the artist, again, art is very subjective. They sort of look like stubbed out cigarettes in front of the fire station, but the art, like the way that they made these pieces was through recycled fire hoses. And so and like colored concrete, and so it harkened back to, the fire station component. Was it executed as well as it could have? I don't know. Art is subjective. I'm sure some people think it's really cool. And so things like that, that if it, I wonder if you put out something general, that it has to relate to the culture, and it has to tie to Kyle in some way, that someone outside this room could find a really interesting nugget of information that they latch onto.
I think what they are saying, kind of like, well, it's evolving, maybe that could be another prompt, is growth.
Yeah, evolution.
And I don't know how artists, they always somehow capture even something as big as that, like growth. So maybe that could be a second option of art that talks about like this transition that Kyle fiercely is going through. So that could be another
Yeah, it
one.
could be as simple as doing like the nature inspired flora, fauna, growth, and then also local history, it's like those three, like, look at those,
Yeah.
That'd be
and
fun.
stick with that,
There you go, 3.
I didn't know if we were gonna get to 3, so.
I was like, there was nothing, and then there was 3.
I just wanted to chat GPT too. Help me.
I think that's great how you put it 3.
Got it. Written down,
You got it.
going in the minutes, yeah.
Yeah, because I like what I think you were saying, like, that's the gateway into when you're first entering Kyle, and it's, they could relate to the name of the street, or Windy Hill, or like, the hills, or the wind, or, there's lots of different areas that they could go, but.
That's good, especially Windy Hill incorporating kinetic. I
Mhm.
mean, that's probably even another cool one.
Right.
Well,
So,
yeah, I was gonna say, I wonder if, like, an additional prompt to have in our back pocket is like, research that neighborhood. Like, I live in Bunton Creek, there's a creek, like,
Right.
there's gotta be something there historically that you can find.
Well, yeah, like for same Dacey family area.
Yeah, the Dacey family property is. It's not developed yet, but there's been ideas thrown around for years of how that will develop, so, long term.
We are working on a project off of Benton Reserve, and similarly, there's an old barn on site. And so there was some information that the developer provided to us, which didn't end up proving very, it was, just a German family that this was their farm and like, this was their barn and, you know.
Cool though, because when you think German history, you're like Fredericksburg and New Braunfels.
Right.
You don't think about.
And I may be putting in the prompt too, that there is archive information available if an artist wants.
Yeah, I think it'll be regardless of the theme, we can give them just a general brief that talks about the spirit of Kyle, the spirit of the community. Especially now that we understand from the community, which again, I'm trying to get ahead of myself here, but I'm gonna talk about the master plan in one of the items. But we do have some feedback from the community on public art, and so those are elements that we can provide them with.
You just be a mixed bag.
I mean, when you look at that Bend, Oregon, with all those examples from Bend, I mean, it is. Yeah, all of
Those
these
are
look
cool.
so different. And the website, when you can see them all kind of side by side on the website. I don't know how it all works, but it works. It's,
Maybe just the unifying thing is that it's around them. And they're all-
There you go. Thank you for the input, that's good. This is direction that, send that to Parks Board.
Yeah, what we'll do again, we'll bring this item back and put it on our monthly updates and I'll investigate more on the budget process on what that's gonna allocate, cause I think that'll definitely help.
Do we want to streamline parameters? Do we want to say they should all be sustainably focused or like? Cause some of them are gonna be obvious, like, do not obstruct the view. We're not trying to like cause accidents. But like, I also think, like, do we want, I don't know. Do we want it to be sustainable? Do we want them to like work with the area that they're in? Like,
I mean, I think the most, I mean, I think that is probably something we might wanna mention. I think it's also important to mention that they use materials that withstand, you know.
the weather.
I mean, I've seen a lot of outdoor artwork and sculptures that don't withstand this Texas heat and things like that, so, yeah, I think parameters are good as far as.
Yeah, we could definitely do that. Making sure that it's something doable, sustainable, kind of way to think about.
Yeah.
Further.
Great.
Ready to move on. Thank you. Item on the agenda, receive a report, hold a discussion, provide staff feedback regarding general updates to the department, announcements, public art related items, procurement items, business maintenance and project. The presenter will be Chris. Who's the deputy director of Parks and Rec.
I was gonna wait for the item to get posted. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Alright, so. First of all, guys, thank you for having me today. Arts and Cultural Board, we have y'all's monthly report as we have every month. I sort of got ahead of myself talking a little bit about some of the items, but I'm gonna talk about the RFP roundabout art, give you guys a master plan update, and just give you other updates regarding projects that are existing that we've talked about over the last several months. The first one is the RFP. You are receiving an item on this today, so I'm not gonna really elaborate much on. I'm gonna touch on this on the next agenda item, but it is something that is currently active. The roundabout art project is something that we just talked about right now as well. But again, just to give you understanding a timeline, that is something that we do envision Parks and Recreation to take the lead on procuring the yard component, and also the project management and coordination of getting that piece installed. So that's something that we just identified some scope. So that's gonna be things that we're gonna take back to the park board, take to, council, and just get general updates or feedback, I should say, from them and identify next steps. So hopefully by our next board meeting, we'll have some general sense of direction. Granted, we have to submit these items to city secretary's office like 2 weeks before. But I'll give you guys an update, so I'll probably be vague on the presentation, but I can give you guys an update just based on, what happened earlier that week on Tuesday. So going into the what we call the pros master plan, I'm not sure, have you guys heard about the master plan that the city underwent the last several months? Is it news to you guys? If not, it is something that the Parks Department is truly excited for. The last master plan that we had was in 2016, 2017, I believe. Most of these last about 10 years. What it is, it's basically a guidebook to get you action items, feedback from the community, and just really prioritize a lot of projects to elevate the park system. And so knowing that there was just new leadership in place, there is a lot of fast growth occurring. It was something that we needed to go back to the community with and reevaluate kind of where we are as a park system. So the last several months, we incorporated a lot of public engagement. What you see on screen on the top right illustrates that we gathered 4,000 data points of feedback, where there was several initiatives to accomplish this, from surveys to in-person meetings, to focus groups, to workshops, you name it. We were out at events and we were collecting all this information. So it's not necessarily just something just out of a survey. We were trying to get a lot. So very proud to say that we collected that many responses, and we got a lot of great feedback. The reason why this is on here today is, one, to provide you with that information from a park standpoint, but also to highlight that they do want public art. There was a lot of public art that was relayed, and it's actually one of those most desired amenities that you see. It's kind of hard to see on screen, but on the bottom left on the green, it's the number of, it's, I don't even know if it's a
Yeah,
quarter.
Number 5.
But it's in the top 8, I would say, of us incorporating interactive public art. So that's one of those components that they illustrated. As well as it's an action item that we're looking to integrate from our objectives or from our mission, so to say, that they're identifying our objectives. I did say it correctly. They had 4 or 5 different objectives, and from there is various individual action items on how to achieve this set objective. And one of those components is illustrated public art. So that's the reason why I wanted to highlight this, that it is something that we have heard from the community as far as wanting to experience out in these public spaces and these park spaces for us to feature. So that's very great information to hear. It is something that we have presented to parks to park board as well as city council. We actually presented to them earlier this month, and they received it very well. They were very excited for it. We do anticipate adopting this in May. So I'll have a little bit more information. Maybe I'll have something by next meeting, if not for sure in May, that illustrates what those action items that are being captured regarding the public art component. So the National Fitness Court, as you all know, this is a project that is active. We have finalized the design plans, and we are working with our public works team currently to figure out when this is the foundation will be poured. Just as general, I guess, reminder as far as location, this is going to be featured at Lake Tahoe. So Lake Tahoe is the location of this, and we do anticipate hopefully opening this next month, and it'll be something that we'll definitely be inviting the board for, of unveiling this new piece, especially that there's an art component connected to this with the mural that you see on screen, which is an item that was actually, the artist is one of our staff members actually that created that. So just wanted to highlight her again. And feel free to stop me, guys, if you have any
Exercise
questions.
stations, is that what it is?
Mhm.
Oh, okay.
I have
I wasn't sure what it meant, with the fitness court.
But what's it, I'm sorry.
It's a exercise station, so it's kind of hard to,
Like a black
Yeah.
permanent one.
but it's
Right.
permanent, yep, it's stationary equipment that you can do. Like push-ups on, or there's very exercises that tells you, there's probably like maybe 20, 30 different types of exercises that you can do on there.
A lot of towns.
Yeah, a lot of towns, yep.
My neighborhood Waterleaf Park has a small one, like,
Yeah, Waterleaf has,
Yeah.
individual workout stations. This is a little bit different. There's like boxes that you can, I mean, there's a whole screen, or not a screen, but a whole list of different moves. Kind of like if you go to a gym, it tells you, here's all the things you can do.
yeah.
It's kind of the same thing. There's also an app that you can download, and it also gives you the same information.
So when you were,
Correct.
so we were talking about interactive art, you know, people asking for that too. So, one of the town. The Marble Falls. Like downtown, they have that, so they have xylophones and different things that are like heavy duty, but they're interactive and, you know, they make noise, but you know, like out at Lake Kyle or something where it's farther away, you know, that might be something too, where again, interactive. You know, physical part, you might have
Some sort of.
some sort of interactive art where it's, you know, musical or whatever it be, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, it was cool. This last month, I'm not sure if y'all met Amy Garcia, but she's my counterpart. She's our assistant director. She is over the recreation side of the house, which we call the carriage division. And we went to the city of Frisco or Allen, I don't remember where it was. There was some piece that you literally just turned like a knob, and it was doing all this like cool stuff. I think it was doing like these wings.
Yeah.
It was illustrating a type of bird. So it was cool to see that there's all these various interactive pieces out of the park system.
Yeah.
So this is gonna be at Lake Kyle? Are
Correct.
they expanding the parking lot? Cause right now it's pretty busy. I live near there.
Yeah, so it's very small. Let me go back to that slide. So I'll get up there and show you guys. So the playground is located here. Here's the building, here's the existing parking. And so currently this is gonna meet at the corner. To answer your question, we do plan on expanding the parking lot where it's gonna go over this way, as well as improving the existing parking lot. But right now, we strategically place this, so this wall that you see there, it's gonna be facing the parking lot. It's gonna be facing the street. So the orientation of it is towards there. So as you park your car, you're gonna be able to
Yeah,
see.
see that.
see it.
Nice.
Yeah.
But we are in the works of improving our parks, but parking lots for Lake Howell will probably be, probably next year. Is what right now, we're working on Steeplechase and Waterleaf.
So are they gonna continue to have the carnival and the?
Yes, well, as of this year, yes. So Kyle Fest will be occurring, as far as future years. I don't know, we could go to a new location depending if, how we are, upgrading our parks or creating new parks. That's gonna be something that future us are gonna have to decide. But for right now, yes, it will be staying at Lake Kyle. And it'll be ready, this will be ready in time for Kyle Fest this year too, so everyone will get to see this. All right, tiny art gallery boxes, so this is a. So, just to give you a quick update, there was a box actually that, not sure if you guys noticed, but we had it last week here, and I know there's some conversation about it, so just, for a little bit of history, this is something from my knowledge that was an idea that came about last year that staff was tasked with, procuring and putting together. And this was something from the, I guess, before Parks and Rec took over, the planning team, was one that was leading the way, for this project. So the boxes did come in mid-February. The boxes were not built to the original specifications from what our understanding is. There was an original initial intent of the opening coming from the top. And quite frankly, just the finishing touches did not seem to equate the value that was paid for these boxes. So it's something that I actually have, actually had a conversation with him about 2 hours ago. As far as just having those initial discussions, on these, and the artist or the builder in the scenario is willing to work with us. So right, I guess what I'm trying to gather is what I'm considering a punch list. So a punch list that probably should have been addressed before we were able to accept the final product. However, staff is willing to work with the individual, and the individual's willing to work with us. So as of right now, it's just a matter of creating that punch list and identifying such scenarios. From the conversation that I had, I guess from his defense, in the sense that he was giving a lot of parameters. He had said there's parameters from the sense of, hey, let's make sure that the box can't be vandalized. So let's put like no glass where it's a like a plexiglass, or it's some type of plastic to avoid someone having to punch through. And then as well, there was a comment made of the hinges in the inside, to where it's something that somebody with a drill just can't go in there and take off and then just open the thing. So he was trying to get creative ultimately. But it's something that, again, we can have more conversation about on what those punch list items are. So welcome any feedback on what we want to relate to the builder. But I did talk about the solar light at the top, talked about changing out the lid on the top, or switching it from being an opening in the center to it being on the top where you can place it in, and also identifying those gaps that exist, because there's a lot of gaps in it, especially if it's something that's gonna be outdoors. Then we need to make sure that there's no water or whatever elements, outdoor elements going into that space. So with that, if I'll welcome any feedback, I'll leave this slide up here. If you guys have any comments, questions, concerns?
I have my list.
Okay,
The back needs to be fixed, so he needs to just put a whole new back on it. Back. And the top, I don't know whether he can salvage that or not. It needs to open from the top, and if he opens it from the top, then the hinge will be near the top and it won't be showing as much as
Yeah.
current hinge, that was kind of the thing, like if it's one like this, that he has to use that big of a hinge because that detracted from
Yeah.
the look. If he has to use that big of a hinge, at least it will be on top and not behind the art item. And then, yeah, the finish for the cost of it, the finish of putting that solar light in there was not
Yeah.
good. So that's my.
And is it
punch list.
solar light, is that something that's needed?
Well, we thought it was a nice to have. I guess when I was thinking of it, when we were thinking of it, thinking of one too, where, you put solar lights and they can be replaced. But obviously with this kind, you have to replace it from the inside, not from the outside, because you don't want somebody taking it off like this.
Mhm.
But if you might, I don't know, I'm not an engineer, but if you put it and you could put it from the inside and attach it and then make it replaceable, that'd be awesome. I mean, it's not a have to have, but at night it certainly was gonna make it
For sure.
for,
Yeah. I think we
Light
can
up.
come with
light
some
up, but
solutions.
what was, for the price point.
Yep.
Definitely, I mean,
And I wasn't here last year when
Mhm.
this was all brought up, but as far as the finishing too, like the wood finish, did they want it to have a wood finish or? I mean, when I think of gallery, I think of white, modern, and then it's just the art that stands out,
We
you know?
talked, we
Yeah.
talked about this.
we had a discussion about that, some of us wanted gray paint, and then some wanted the natural. We just said whatever it was, like if it was the wood, that it had to be finished so that it could stand up
Yeah.
against the rain and stuff.
I was very pro paint in the beginning, and then when we had the discussion last year, because I love the same thing, I'm like, I love a minimalist, clean aesthetic,
Yeah.
especially if art's gonna be in it, but the maintenance, because white and like light paint gets so filthy, and we're like, inevitably it's gonna get vandalized, inevitably it's gonna be subject to the sun and the rain and the hail and the winds. So I think we were like, the natural finish is fine as long as there's like some sort of finish.
And does it have to be wood though? If you're looking at durability, can it be another,
True.
can it be concrete, can it be, I mean, that might make it heavy, but does it have to
Metal.
be wood?
I think the conversation was wood, so it would blend in better with the like natural aesthetics of where we were putting them, because they're gonna be in areas like that are very natural. So we.
That's what I was gonna
Yeah,
ask,
that's
like, are the
right.
locations selected?
Yeah.
The ones like near the library building, you know, which is concrete and whatnot, it might be a little bit more of a different material, yeah. Look, for ones near a park entrance, yeah, I get it, you know, having the natural wood,
To
but
date, staff has not heard on locations or identified said locations, so that could be something that we can further explore if there is locations that were identified. We can go back through the minutes and
We didn't
Figure it
pick
out, but-
specific, but the thought was that it would be more like, you know, in a park setting or something like that.
Yeah, we talked about the library, we talked about downtown, we talked about Verde. And so the reason we didn't pick specific locations is because we wanted staff specifications, right? To make sure that it was viable, that it made sense, and also, we're not the ones staking it in the ground, right? So like,
Absolutely.
we're also like wanting to be considerate of what is underneath, what y'all need to set them up.
Yeah, I mean, because especially if we're talking about a post on it, then we have to identify anchor, you know. how
Right,
to
and then
get
we were
first.
told the city would, the engineering city would figure all that out, we didn't need to
Gotcha.
figure that out.
Yeah, we can identify, we can definitely let you guys know where we think is more appropriate, and just get y'all's 2 cents on that, y'all's blessing to make sure that's an appropriate location, but yeah, I mean, that's good information. for
And
me to
that's
have.
how that evolved, you know, the thought was, we'll just see how 3 go, and then after that, you know, we can not do it again, or we can go in a different direction. I have since, I didn't know about it at first, but now, you know, last weekend, and if you go on Etsy and look this up, there's a lot of examples of stuff like this. Different materials and everything.
Right.
So, never even thought of looking there when you were talking about this.
Yeah, so again, it'll be something that, if you don't mind, Rose, it could be something that we can share, maybe just tell me what it was that you looked up keyword. If this is literally tiny art gallery outdoor box, then I can just give them, hey, this is sort of what we talked about and see how we can accommodate such ask. Granted, the individual, from my understanding, has been paid out, so it's one of those
We just
items
need to
that.
salvage what we have,
Yeah.
I think, but definitely like this isn't what we wanna come out with.
Agreed, so,
It's just tiny art boxes, and just look up tiny art boxes on Etsy, and that's, it was all coming from
great,
everything.
yeah, we can.
I don't know, I'm like, should we have a Etsy for this?
Yeah.
Should we add-
We don't use Etsy, I mean,
Yeah.
they would have made it.
Yeah, it's, so from our standpoint, and at least from my just initial conversation with the individual, he's willing to work with us. So he just asked for the punch list and we're gonna go.
I'm wondering though too, I don't know how much the budget was for these, like. Could it be salvaged that these could just become tiny libraries and we can donate to have them be the tiny libraries and start anew with tiny gallery, you know, like, I don't know.
Well, the way that they close in the back, the ceiling,
Yeah.
books and stuff would be wrapped in there, it's like water, everything
Yeah,
can get in there, there's.
Yeah, it was about $900 a box. Is what it was.
Thanks, okay.
So it's, that's the information I found out. Almost, that is right under $3,000, so it's closer to $8,000.
I know I once worked on a project for work and we did a display case. The client paid like 10 grand for it and then they didn't end up liking it. They're like, just throw it in the trash. We're gonna do a new one. I'm like, whoa.
So, you know.
Their budget, you know? So I didn't know if this would be something, you know, if we're not happy with, if
Yeah,
it
so
can
I
be
think
turned
we
into.
have,
You know?
Yeah,
again, now that I understand kind of general consensus, I'll go ahead and push on our end and see what it is that we can do, how we can, mitigate that and come back with an update next month. And see
Yeah,
if
I
it's
don't know,
something.
if you could come up with some alternative, I don't know, but
Yeah, we can
Yeah.
ask. Yeah, it's worth, I don't mind asking the question.
Salvaging them would be nice. Maybe we can turn them into little terrariums.
Yeah.
Since we can't put plants in there, we can put little.
you know what you could, like, if they would be indoors,
Yeah.
if they would be
Right.
indoors, then
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you said, the historic stuff archives, like, I don't know, maybe they can use a display. It's some of the historic buildings, you know, like.
If you could fix the solar piece, it looks really wonky.
Yeah, no, and I did mention that, and I think with us taking that top part, he could just replace that. I mean,
Yeah.
he actually mentioned that to me.
Looked like he was tired by that.
Yeah, he told me it was some. He made me laugh. He told me it was an acrylic that he used. That's, I guess, an exterior acrylic, and it just looks a little bit rough.
yeah, so I just know, I just think if you put permanent back on the back. I'm just gonna have to fill the holes and then was, you know, and put a hole in.
Sounds good, yeah. I mean,
I like the idea of putting it inside a building. Extend or.
Gotta
Yeah.
find the building.
Yeah, I actually asked that question originally, the way that I looked at this box, I was like, oh, it looks like something that could be featured indoors, but understanding that it wants to be outdoors,
Yeah.
I didn't know that, so I'm like, oh,
Right.
that makes sense now.
But I think as much as it was, I don't think. Should walk it.
Yeah.
Fixing those things,
Yeah, again, I didn't
at
get
least
a,
it looks,
I didn't get a sense
Square
that they
and
were
lined
willing
up.
to work with us, so that's something,
Okay.
I'll have an update
Okay.
for you guys. So post sponsorship request, as you recall, 2 meetings ago, there was an ask on identifying the process, on seeing how we can work with, third-party agencies, such as in this scenario, CAS, the Cal Area Senior Zone. Just wanna let you know that based on the last update, we did contact CAS and ask them to give us a list of programs and events that they wish the committee to consider for sponsorship, and we're still waiting on that list. So that's the latest update. The ball is on their court.
Yeah.
And they're still trying to evaluate how it is and how is it that they want to collaborate with the city in proxy by, the arts and culture.
Yeah, well, my question with that is, how do we partner? Cause Rose, I know that we've done things historically with like quilts, but I'm also like, how do we do that? Like, is it through Instagram? Like, if we have the boxes, we could put stuff in the box, I'm like, how are we physically building community and partnering with them? I guess is my question.
Yeah, and I guess it's a twofold question. If it's something that from like yourself, if you want to just go ahead and advertise it on your personal page, not including, the Arts and Culture Committee, then that's something that you're more than welcome to do. But if it's something that the Arts and Culture Committee is using, what the city attorney calls city's resources, such as city sites, city staff time, or city, or whatever it may incorporate, that's where there's a policy, that has to go through city council for us to have a pre-vetted list of here's what it is that the city through the Arts and Culture Committee is providing in-kind service or whatever it includes for such agency. So that's really that line is, are we using it for the public? It has to truly be a public benefit that needs to be brought forward, and it has to be illustrated in that manner. It can't just be something that we just want to do it just because we want to do it. Because we're allocating city resources, that there does have to be some type of public benefit element into that.
And y'all do have a logo, so like, let's say it goes through and what they're accepting, so if they have this art permit, it's been approved by y'all to get endorsement, then we ask permission to have y'all's logo like on their flyer.
so how I took their initial ask was, they just wanted us to help promote it.
Mhm.
That was kind of all they wanted was, hey, could you put it on your website that there's this the show so that they get a little more
Visibility.
visibility. I think that was, to me, that was what they had wanted. But it came too late to get it done. And then, of course, then you do get to this thing where, okay, is that all you wanted or more? So I think you put it back in their court. And I think you put it back in their court and said, well, what are you exactly asking
Yeah.
for? So I thought, isn't that where we're sitting right now?
Mhm.
Is they need to just tell us, yeah, all we want to do is, we just want a little bit of PR support. We don't expect you to come work it. We don't expect staff to be here. We don't expect to use your, we just wanted you guys to help promote it on our
Yeah.
behalf.
So does that open us up to other nonprofits wanting?
Well, that's,
So. Yeah, so if there's other agencies and again, it's kind of trying to get that information, if it's something that we want to work with other agencies. Now, if it's something that we're doing, like if we're the ones leading it, then we can navigate that a little bit easier. Now, if it's somebody else asking something on behalf of us, that's where this process needs to be
Okay, so you're just setting up parameters in case other nonprofits come
correct.
and ask, okay.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, I mean, just like we're doing the process with CAS, another agency will have to do the same
Yeah.
process.
They'll see it.
Yeah, I do think. This is just like my marketing wizard brain. I do think we need to define how we support these orgs in the future. Cause when they say help us market, I'm like, what does that mean? Right? Cause in my brain, I'm like, okay, if I'm doing it like, there's a social post because we have an arts and culture Instagram or whatever. Like, we go to the event, or when we do our artist networking monthlies, which we used to do, I don't know if we'll do them again. Like, we plug it there, you know what I mean? And right now, when they're like, help us promote it, I'm like, how are we doing that? What's the process?
Yeah, and getting to all those details, I think is gonna be a little bit easier to
Mhm.
follow as long as we have those proper approvals.
Yeah.
To do so. I mean, if we can leave a blanket statement just for us to be able to incorporate that, and feel free to, I know that's kind of more
Mhm.
your lane, but even then, it's something that we just need to make sure that we go to council,
Mhm.
have them approve it for us to give us the authority to use staff resources.
Yeah, I guess. I guess we'll see the patterns that come, as the first, so we'll see what the next one looks like and. See, okay, this is a constant request, so we'll set up like a certain procedure, that. That can see like, okay, you would qualify if your event is this. And what we can do is this, like, so it's a kind of a standard for all the partners that want to do it.
Yeah,
Something like
there's
that.
a co-sponsorship process which is what you have on screen. And then there's a partnership process. The partnership process is a little bit more simpler for us to navigate, where our director has authority to sign off on such partnerships. That actually Tamara is the lead on. So those are avenues that if we have agencies that we want to work with in some type of capacity, and we see some type of interest where they can maybe contribute towards helping us run said galleries. I'm just making stuff up. Maybe that's a partnership that the city can engage with to help supplement some of those volunteer opportunities. So those are two different areas, but that's something that we have the ability to do in-house.
because I know it did come up once before too, probably over a year ago, where, somebody on our committee had asked, oh, how about if we give some money to this other organization because they do art, and then we were like, not interested in partnering that way, like. Our budgets are for, us to do things, not you co-sponsoring something that's different, but just saying, oh, yeah, this program, we're gonna give you some of our money or whatever. It's like, no, that's not what we're gonna do.
Yeah, anything else on the side?
Can I go back to roundabouts?
Yeah,
Just, we need to show people how to use them, since we're gonna have more and more of them. Cause I live, near Casetta Ranch, and people do not know the use.
yeah, we'll pass that message along to transportation.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was, so they actually had item at council yesterday, speaking of just the bond, transportation bond, so there are gonna be some education elements, there are gonna be some public meetings coming up, I believe next week, there's one. Is it elementary school, middle school, here by Greg Clark Park, for, I don't know, Wallace, I think. Oh, they're gonna have a public meeting scheduled next week. So that's, there's gonna be a lot of those opportunities that, yes, I mean, there's gonna have to be an education component, especially when there's gonna be 27 or however many there are roundabouts being installed.
Maybe that could be an interactive station.
Which one?
You have an interactive station where you go up and you sit in this, with a screen and you get to drive around.
They'll get the
and go to
VR
different
VR goggles in
scenarios.
there.
About still.
We don't know the structure on that, but.
My daughter.
Roundabouts are very
last year.
So I'm like, guys,
They don't know whose fault it is, you know what I mean?
Start them like.
All that, so that was.
They try to get it in front
Something
of you.
European, I feel like European concept.
Yeah, we'll pass.
I have a question about the master plan that I meant to ask earlier.
Yeah.
Is part of the master plan that you're talking about that walkable highway? The pedestrian highway? Am I making that up?
Or like the 8 miles.
The vibe. Yeah,
Yes,
the
the
vibe
vibe.
trail. Yeah, so the vibe trail is a component of that. So actually, the vibe, yeah, the vibe trail. The number one ask was trails. So connectivity. So that is one of those higher priorities. But yes, a component of the master plan does incorporate the vibe trail.
Yeah.
However, more than likely a recommendation from the master plan is to go into deeper
Mhm.
alignment to identify truly where all those gaps are, to be able to figure out, which, another thing is, I believe, next council meeting, or it's gonna be coming out, the city's gonna undergo an update to the transportation master plan,
Okay.
which is gonna have a component of
Vibe.
trail, of vibe, and so that's gonna be how we connect all those puzzle pieces, so all these various plans,
Yeah.
are.
They meet in the middle. They meet in the middle. Okay, I was just asking because selfishly, I want to be able to bike everywhere. So
Mm.
that's just an aside. But also,
It's a good one.
yeah, but also like art.
Yep.
For the vibe.
Absolutely, and so that's, and I think that's where a lot of those comments came from, us to incorporate those in entryways or.
The trailheads.
Trailheads,
yeah.
The trailheads we were talking about, that'd be an
Trailheads
opportunity
and-
for art, and
and-
maybe something where each of the trailheads has some kind of structure that looks the same, maybe not the same design or whatever, but just that you could recognize it as, oh, this is a Kyle trailhead.
Like for Johnson Wildflower Center has a good trail where they
Yeah.
feature artists, you know, you can
Yeah.
walk through. And
That's great.
It's like a scavenger.
And that's what I was referring to as well, to those experiences on the history, where you can start incorporating those, hike or bike kind of experiences, where you integrate art.
Yeah.
And the last item that I have for this monthly report is last month I gave a presentation on truly the vision, and that we want to have a conversation with you all on how we want to elevate or take it to the next level, take it to the next steps, from a public art standpoint, from a arts and cultural standpoint. And so that is one thing that we are looking to engage with you on a little bit further. Based on the information that I gathered, I just wanted to gather some initial thoughts from you all. I know we're working on the current RFP. We are working on these roundabouts, for these two pieces of art. So call them 4 projects, 4 projects that we're looking to incorporate. But also trying to identify, one, the bandwidth, that staff has, just based on carrying capacity, but not only that, seeing how we identify other types of programs. So one of the questions that I have up here is, do we want to explore more of a traffic box art wrap program? That was something that we talked about, last month, and if you know or don't know what that is, you have those kind of gray boxes that sit on the intersections. And you've probably seen them, Austin has a lot of them, a lot of cities have them where they put they either hand paint or they put some type of vinyl wrap around it that we're just, rather than it just being this eyesore of a gray metal box, you can go ahead and just put flowers, or you can incorporate the history. You can do all those various components. So that's a pretty inexpensive, pretty just very introductory program for various municipalities to get introduced. So I just wanted to get y'all's thoughts if that's something you wanted to explore, that we can take a little bit further along. I did check with the transportation division, since they do manage those boxes, and they had no concerns with us moving forward. And so from a city standpoint, staff standpoint, I should say, it's something that I think we're looking to explore, if it's something that the board can support.
Yeah.
I know we always look for artists to hire or, have we looked at young artists from high schools?
I'm glad you mentioned that. So in my prior city, what we did is we did a campaign with traffic bucks art, where we had the high schools. The high schools submitted all these pieces of art, and it was, it was a free program in the sense that they don't have to, like, we're not paying them. It's more of a recognition on their art. However, the expense is that we have to buy the material, of course, right, for us to put that. I think we did a total of 12 boxes, and they averaged about 2,500, 1,500, 2,500, I think, a box or so. And I could be off on that math. It could be a little bit cheaper, but I'm not sure what this region is. But even then, it's from an inexpensive standpoint, from art, and for you to maximize some of those spaces, it's something cool to integrate community,
Yes.
and then
I
integrate
love that.
young artists.
Right.
So,
I went to an art fair last September in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and they do that. They gather the college art students of that city to enter their design concepts, and then it gets voted on. And those students got to paint their design concept on cars there over a 3-day weekend. So that was super cool. So having something where we were calling high school and maybe college students in the city
Yeah.
to submit their concepts and do these wraps on these, transportation boxes would be super cool.
yeah, it could be something that we could start off with. Hey, there's these 2 major intersections, right?
Yeah.
And then just
Submit your
start a pilot program. truly.
Yeah.
So that's sort of the idea that I'm thinking about, starting a pilot program, and probably my recommendation was gonna be reaching out to the school
Yeah.
and seeing how we can integrate. So I'm glad you brought that up, because that's exactly what I was about to say.
We love that.
Okay, well,
We need,
so that's helpful. So just to capture some of the goals that I highlighted already. So we're looking to finalize the public art RFP, officially commission, those 2 art pieces that we're talking about, which we're gonna have another item here, the next one, next item, and then finalize the roundabout art that we're talking about today, or that we did talk about, and the master plan. So identifying a master plan similar to the pros master plan that we did for the department as a whole, identifying a arts and cultural master plan for us to integrate, and again, I'll say sophisticating ourselves at setting set parameters, setting set practices, as far as this is how we want to take the art in Kyle, and they're going to be able to engage with the community and get that information. So we'll be able to hear from the community on what type of art they want to feature and all those various components. So I did reach out to one consultant and did get an initial price. I think I mentioned before, I think it's something that we can get under $50,000. Where the funding is coming from, that's still something we gotta figure out, but I was able to successfully get a proposal that does meet that threshold. So just to give you an understanding of kind of what that is, that's something that we're still working on, but in case you were wondering, what that impact may be, that's something that we're currently working. The reason why I illustrate the $50,000 is city manager has authority to sign off on contracts under 50 without it having to go to city council. Not to say that we don't necessarily want to go to city council, it just expedites that process for us to be able to,
Are you saying that's the budget for a consultant?
Correct.
Got it.
Estimated, yeah.
Estimated
Cause it's
budget.
just, he just got one, just to kind of get a
So do you think it's necessary for us to have a consultant to be able to establish you know,
Yes.
I would say so too.
I just know that you're gonna, a lot of people are consultants to hear.
And that's fair, and that is, I
It
just
doesn't be
mentioned.
now either, it could be maybe in the next year,
Could be.
so.
It's just one of those.
Well, can you guys do a bid for consultants, like a kind of a call also, just to see?
Yeah, we could definitely put out an RFP. So whenever you're talking about professional services, there's certain exceptions through procurement that you're able to do, especially when you talk about professional services. But yeah, for sure, we can always put out an RFP and get it out there and see what those proposals come back at. Again, for me, not saying we're going with this individual or this agency, it was me just trying to get a general sense of what am I correct with my evaluation of
Right.
cost, and just to start having the conversation. So, I just wanted to bring that up, just to let you know that's something that we're exploring and potentially can bring back. We still have to have more conversation with city management. I know there is an interest of growing our arts program, not just from this body that's here, but from the city, and even council. I mean, even council, I think, has expressed the need for us to expand on that. So it's one thing that I would recommend us having a master plan, and usually that involves a consultant. That wouldn't necessarily be something that staff will have expertise in that very specific subject. There is a concern though of public fatigue, public engagement fatigue, just because we have so many plans happening.
Right.
So I do see that point. It could be something that we can leverage, and maybe leverage is the wrong word, but we can use information from our existing pros master plan. But it's not gonna be very specific, so where the recommendation is to go out and start having, even if it's 1 or 2 sessions, maybe it's a small survey. Just a maybe 5-minute survey, that's not gonna be a 15-minute survey like the pros master plan was, so just those are components that we can look at a little bit further.
That was survey. I need a snack after that.
And so that's all I have on that item. Any other questions on the monthly report?
Hey. For last item. Receive a report, hold a discussion, provide staff direction regarding the art in the public spaces. RFP. And presenter is and press.
Yeah, thanks again, Chris Scotto, Parks and Rec Director. Waiting for this presentation to get uploaded. And just while Tamara's doing that, just as a general reminder, I'm gonna go through probably from the beginning. I am gonna go from the beginning on the scope, the RFP process. Just I know we do have a new staff or a new board member, so I just want to give you some general context of where were we on this, where are we now, and what are the next steps. It's true that we're gonna be capturing. So the art scope that was put out for RFP was for us to seek a unique, one of a kind, large scale piece of artwork that could incorporate that sculpture or monument, where we wanted it to be contemporary in style and visually striking. There was some information provided with it having some type of natural energy source such as wind or solar. So that was the parameters that were given to the artists. As for your knowledge on how the RFP process works, there's an evaluation criteria that must be met. There's 4 different categories: concept, price, experience, and then the level of completion of the proposal. And so all those are spread out to equate to 100 points. The price component is something that the committee was not necessarily purview to. That was something that was set up beforehand by our purchasing department, because they usually tend, because it's an RFP, there's very specific criteria on how you handle RFP. An RFP is request for proposals, just in case anybody did not know what that means. There was a total of 5 artists that submitted some submissions, and there was 2 that were selected from the task force that you see on screen, which incorporated Ms. Rose, Annabelle, and Melissa that we had. So that is just a kind of background of that. So initial feedback that was given based on those two artists I'm about to start getting into. Ultimately, I think there was great comments. This was the first RFP of its kind for the art committee, which is great. There was two artists there was a recommendation for, Jessica Bell and Dana Perotti, which I'm going to introduce the concepts. So these concepts, Jessica Bell provided a abstract wing sculpture that I'm not going to go into the details on here on how it's broken down, but this was their initial submission. Dana Brody's sample submission was X Heart. That was a cast bronze concrete sculpture with a proposed location for La Verde. Miss Brody did provide a location where Miss Jessica Bell just kind of left it up to the purview of the board / city to evaluate where this may be, but they did want to make it an interactive component. So anywhere that was appropriate for it to interact with, which was what was proposed. Going to the submission enhancement. So this was something that the task force provided a recommendation to this body overall to recommend to redefine the concept itself with additional criteria. So some of the information that was provided for the abstract wings, the first one was to provide a redefined concept with something being a little bit more recognizable. It seemed to be that, I mean, it was very abstract, very hard to illustrate what it was. So that was one of the directions that was given to the artist, as well as they really like the ability to interact and integrate with the art. So please keep that, figure out, how we can make it more known. There was also additional comments towards previous art. So part of the scope or part of the RFP, they submitted scope of work of past examples. And so some of those past examples, they felt that was probably more of what the city may want to see, because it was a little bit more recognizable. So those were components that was provided back to Jessica for her to improve the art, which we're going to get into at the later slides. Ms. Dana Brody, really the feedback here was that we can incorporate some color and maybe elevate the sculpture, because there was concerns of individuals maybe having climb up the sculpture itself. So if there's a way to elevate it and add some type of concrete pedestal. So that was the feedback given. So based on the updated renders, here is the updated concepts that Ms. Jessica Bell provided. The original is on the right. They rearranged the composition to where it looks more like a bird. They did space out, so they did keep kind of the same element. However, they provided a second option just because of the comment of, hey, we want something a little bit more recognizable, which is this.
Love.
And so
Oh,
they
that one,
provided,
okay, I was wondering if it
yeah,
was-
so they
okay.
provided a different concept, just to give you some more information. The poles will not be tapered. They will be consistent that diameter, and again, keeping that integration element for you to interact with it. That was something that was key, so they are still incorporating that. So those two options are what Jessica Bell submitted. Now you have Miss Dana Brody's sample submission. Again, the original is on the right, and then they incorporated color on the left. And so this was their second option. So moving forward to the task force recommendation. Oh, you're just telling the story. Task force recommendation, actually last meeting, right before our last board meeting, we met and we did meet with the task force, and overall the feedback was well received. The first one, Jessica Bell, the flowers were the ones that was selected. They felt that was something that was more appropriate as far as the criteria that was given of something a little bit more recognizable, something interactive. So there was two components that they wanted to feature, though, is can we reach out to Ms. Jessica Bell and see how we can add solar lighting to the petals, so to say. So there's maybe some light that's shining down. So we did speak with the artist, and they are incorporating that. So they did incorporate that for Because it was a very small fee that they did it for.
Was she pricing the flowers then the same as the other?
Correct, yeah, so those two options were the same price.
Okay.
The lighting was just the addition, so it was very minimal.
In the same place that they were thinking of the wings.
So they didn't
It's-
have a
it's a
location,
spot.
but I am gonna provide some options here for you guys. And then the second submission, Ms. Dana Perotti, the comment was that they felt like your original submission seemed, they liked the submission originally, but then as we were having more conversation, maybe they're adding some type of glow rock element that you kind of get some shine. So again, speaking to the artists, they love the idea, they're incorporating it
Yay,
for a small.
that's nice.
I'm still going with the original one, but a glow.
Yeah, the second one, when I saw the colors,
Yeah.
I was like, it looks like Lucky Charms.
Yeah.
Like, I'm so. I love that cereal, but also
Yeah.
I also have the vibe we're going.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think Glow Rock will be very cool.
so there's a picture, yes,
So here's the recommendation, again, here's the two costs,
and it'll be on the pedestal then, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
correct, it will still be on the
Kind
pedestal.
of fits in with Glen Verde a lot better, but yeah.
Yeah. Love.
And so I do have some options. So one thing that I want to talk about, I do highlight the price here, and I want to be very intentional on the pricing. And the reason being is there is a set budget, so to say, as far as what is allocated in this year's CIP. I believe it's 65,000 or so.
So we're over budget.
And so right now we are over budget. However, the options that will be provided, the recommendation I'll be moving forward to council pending y'all's feedback today is going to be, there being four options essentially. The four options incorporating, hey, select one. And maybe we can do the other one next fiscal year. Select both of them. And that just means we'll have to increase the funding for it, the budget. The third option will be, the third option will be incorporating selecting just one of these. So where council ultimately has the authority to select, hey, we prefer this one over this one, and then moving forward with that. Or the fourth option being, they don't like any of them, and they just move forward. So I don't know if it's gonna be the fourth option, but those are gonna be the four options that are gonna be presented to them. So there's an ability to increase, select one, you can still select both, we'll just have to be strategic on the fiscal years. Or again, they just select one and move forward. And then again, they still have the ability, there's a big delta here, but they still have the ability to select one and increase the cost if they wanted to, but that's a discussion
Yeah.
City Council has, so, I wanted to be transparent on that recommendation to you all. I just wanted to get y'all's initial thoughts on that before I proceed.
Is there more funding going into La Verde area anyways for parks and, or I guess wherever the funding comes from? For them to complete the park and everything else?
Yeah, there is, and I guess that's where the conversation needs to be had, in regards to the roadways.
Yeah.
Those are all different buckets, so that's the thing.
I didn't know that we could take from like that bucket. True.
Yeah, those are various buckets that staff wouldn't necessarily have the authority to make that decision. That'll be something that council, especially that we have a very purposeful bucket for public art. We wanna make sure that we communicate that to them in that manner that, hey, we love both of these options, the committee's providing these two options for recommendation. But here's the four proposals essentially.
Two things on that, initially when we'd been told about the budget, like we'd been told like, this is kind of your budget, but
Yeah.
if you need more, you can get more. This is just kind of because we weren't, in the first meetings we had, the budgets were set up, 10,000 for this project, 20,000 for this, and it was all broken down. And then after that, it was decided, no, it's just one big number, and you really don't have a budget. You just come up with stuff and present it to the city.
Yeah.
And they'll decide if they want to spend the money on it or not. I understand the budgeting. I mean, I get that, and there's a set amount. But again, if one of these gets moved, then to me, that just gives us more time. Obviously, if we're looking more for future projects, if they're only willing to spend this much a year, then, you know, looking for our next thing won't be till the third year from now, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think that's where that vision comes into play for the master plan that we're talking about. That's all integrated into this on how the city wants to move. And for us, having the data, the backup, you know, says, hey, this is something that's a driving force to push that. Again, I don't know, I can't predict how council's gonna select this option, but I do know it's one of those components that they do value public art, so it could very well be that both of these get selected. But if not, it's something that staff will be making recommendation from a public art standpoint, that's saying, hey, here's what the master plan provided, and not necessarily of the art master plan, but our pros master plan, Parks and Recreation master plan, that maybe we need to increase the budget a little bit, where we, rather than it being 65, let's go 100,000, for us to incorporate, you know, every year and maybe just elevate it. So that's the direction that the staff is looking to take, this year's public art program. But I wanted, rather you hearing, you know, at council, hey, there's 4 options, I wanted to be transparent with you.
Yeah.
So that's what we're
What I
doing.
think, if I had to make like a rational decision, I would steer them towards the one that's within the budget. And then ask them to increase the budget, but I will say I like that we're being very cognizant of budget. Because we know that's been a pain point for the community before. Regardless of how I feel about it. So, I appreciate the good fiscal stewardship we're having, where we're saying, we hear that y'all want public art. We're being very, intentional about it. And also, we're very, very cognizant of like, how y'all feel about city budget.
No,
Yeah.
absolutely, yeah, and it's really our job, and we take that seriously
Yeah.
to be fiscally responsible with that and be transparent with how we're handling these dollars, so that's why I wanted to bring this up and show.
I have a
show-
question. Okay, how does this tie into the boxes budget wise?
That is a great question, and that is something that, as we were talking, I need to identify, where was it that $2,900 came from? Did it
Yeah.
come from that
I would say that was
65,000?
last year.
And you're absolutely right,
Correct.
that was.
Well, you're absolutely right.
That was.
I just don't know if they
Approved
subtracted
last year, it
that.
just-
Right.
April
Yeah.
last year,
Yeah, I just don't know if they subtracted that and assumed that it was just
Well-
gonna get passed.
we had a budget for last year, we didn't spend it.
That's also true. I will say.
Yeah, I'll look more into that.
$6,500 or whatever we had
Yeah.
money last year, we didn't spend hardly any of it, cause nothing got done.
Does it roll over to?
Right, so
It doesn't roll
I
over.
don't need to like open a can of worms, but your question is my question, and that is. Where, like, was this pulled from last year, and also if they have to go back and get them redone? You know, like, there's multiple factors, that's why I'm asking.
Yeah, we'll get more information on that. We'll provide them with.
You're not looking at doing some more
Rose is like, I'm fed up.
no, I'm just saying, I would rather have this than some boxes,
Yeah.
but you guys feel.
Yes, but I mean, I would like to have the boxes, because right now we have all of these projects that we've done and none have been.
Right.
If I were in the public, I'd be like, we spent all this money, nothing's out there, right? So that's part of the question. But I'm also asking because earlier we were talking about you going back to them and fixing them or figuring out what to do with them. So that's why my question is, oh, will that be pulled from this budget? You know, cause then we'd be.
No, I wasn't
Over.
expecting to
Free.
pay more.
Free 99 because otherwise we will just
Not have them, yeah.
Yeah, so,
use them.
and so I just wanted to cover the cost, so I'm gonna finish the presentation, so the proposed sculpture that was, so I was tasked with identifying the location. And so just for your knowledge, there is a playground that's being replaced at Steeplechase Park that did get approved by council last night.
It's being replaced.
Yes, we're
Did
getting.
they
a new-
decide on which design?
Yeah, so actually, I didn't tell you guys, right? Option number 3. Option, option number 3 was the abstract, more of the abstract sculpture that looks, describe it. It's cool looking, essentially, but it was option, so there was one that was traditional, a theme, and then one that was very modern. I think that's what the
Very
word
familiar.
was. And so there is some information on, and I can even show you guys after, to let you know what option got selected, but this is moving forward and we're looking to start construction and really start placing this order for the equipment and probably be finished here this summer, the new playground. And so one of those observations as us going out to the site, I think steeplechase was actually, it was in the survey. It was very specific on, like, I say, all the details, but there was very specific on, I think it said, I'm on the art committee or something on the comments, so it was pretty funny. But they're like, hey, Steeplechase Park will make a great option, and so I was
Oh,
like,
I think I love that comment.
was that? And so I was like, all right, Steeplechase Park, let me go evaluate, and so there is a plaza like area that I think might be a good fit for it. But well, it's very tiny on here.
It is very small. I went yesterday.
So if we're talking about the integration, you know, the element for us to be able to collaborate with the sculpture itself, then this is an area that we have to identify of maybe expanding. And just to give you a little bit more context of what's happening at Steeplechase, the parking lots are being improved. We're going to be installing sidewalks around these corridors. There's the playground itself is going to be enhanced. That's what this area is here. We're going to be adding sidewalks around the perimeter to connect these benches that are on there. And so this here, this is currently empty under the pavilion. And so my thought was, let's move these benches or these picnic tables under the pavilion, and then it's going to open up this concrete area. The concrete area does need to get replaced more than likely. So there's avenues of expanding if need be, or creating some type of stained concrete, so to say, just to complement the piece itself. So that is something outside of the budget, of course. I'm here increasing the budget just based on the items, but just a thought of placement, you know, that was just a comment just based on what I heard from the survey. And truly of all the various park spaces that we have, one of the components that we're looking at for every other park, Greg Clark, Waterleaf, you name it, is going to undergo a master plan. So we don't necessarily want to place something that may get interrupted based on the programming that we're scheduling. And so Steeplechase Park, this is not going anywhere. So it was just that matter of why Steeplechase made sense. So just a little bit more context of why we selected this area. So that's a proposed location there.
What are the diagonal lines? The diagonal lines in the drawing?
Oh, these are going to be landscape beds.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's going to be an enhanced landscape.
Is the Frisbee golf course being affected or no? Or is this remaining there?
Currently it's it's going to remain there. However, we're looking into doing a master plan for the park space where we can improve it.
Good.
So that's what we're looking
Improve what? I'm sorry.
at. Improve the disc golf course.
Oh, okay. And then what about the doggy park? Because that's used quite a bit.
Yeah, so the dog park, we just did a lot of enhancements actually.
Okay. I
We
guess.
just installed solar lights. The dog park
Most
parking lot is gonna be improved as well. We added what we call a mow strip around the fence line to where it makes it easier on maintenance. You probably didn't, unless you kind of identify, you're like, oh, yeah, now I know.
It helps.
And we also just yesterday installed new components. So we added new elements like new ramps and new.
Oh, good, because they were kind of old.
Yeah, so we've improved that as of yesterday. And so just continuing to this, you get to see truly the landscape area, the new playground structure that I'm talking about with new shade. And so this is that pad that I was looking at. It does have a lot of deficiencies on the slab itself that I'm exploring whether it can be repaired or not.
See the shadows just from the picnic tables, yeah,
And so just a thought, just wanted to provide that for context.
So you're gonna remove that piece and put the the art piece there? Is that what you said?
Remove the benches. like
Remove the
picnic tables.
benches, so that's,
Oh,
that's
okay.
the concrete pad that is being pointed out to that small little pin that you see there, that red pin.
Yeah.
That's what this is.
Oh, okay.
So the proposal is move the picnic tables under the pavilion,
Mhm.
and then that area is gonna open up for us to install that piece of art. Now, the
Okay.
question is the foundation. How are we gonna, or the concrete, sorry. How are we gonna redo that pad, that concrete? If we're gonna redo the concrete pad.
If we surfaces.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to
But not
explore,
with something bumpy, it has to be something,
right?
so the reflections.
And so that'll be something
Especially
that we'll
if you
just
want to sit
explore.
under it or something, you know, so it's not so hot.
So just a thought. I want
It's water piece, cause they're flowers. That, you know,
Yeah,
story
water.
there.
In the drop.
We're in a drought and the trails are
I'm
water.
trying to get you to say yes to the park, yes.
So
It'd be really cute.
So that's option, so that is the proposal for Jessica Bell. The proposal for Miss Dana Perotti, she originally did provide us with a location for La Verde, which is actually right next to the amphitheater. But I went outside and identified other potential areas, that wanted to hear your thoughts on consideration.
Yeah.
And so here are option one, which is the existing location that was proposed. Option number two, it's located just, trying to get my bearings straight,
The pool.
just north, yeah, over there by the pool, north of the volleyball court.
Yeah.
And that's where those two areas are, so that's option number
Yeah,
two.
that's like a high traffic walkway area. I feel like a lot of people park there and walk through to get to
Yeah.
the grassy area.
And
How
so,
about the option one?
Or no,
Two. I
two
would
or
go to
three,
two.
yeah.
yeah,
That's
so,
really neat. That
Yeah.
looks really good.
so just wanted to give you options in case you wanted to.
Since option one is already close to the stage, close to the park, they kind of already have the water feature
Yeah.
there and
Mhm.
stuff.
Yeah, I
Might
think
be nice.
I love your choice.
Okay, and so with that, just seeking next steps, again, if approved today, based on y'all's recommendations, we're gonna be taking this to city council for
Would
a
you like
full
option
meeting,
two?
with us being able to let them know those four options that I talked about, and getting their
Right.
recommendation. And that's all I have for the presentations, and just seeking your,
So what was our budget? Since you said one of the options is not do one and keep the other.
He said it was 60.
Oh, 60? Oh,
yeah, it was like
Okay.
60, it's like 63, yeah.
Yeah.
we had to choose, I'd go with the little hearts and kisses.
Well, I will.
Yeah, I don't know what
Being
that,
done.
yeah.
108,000, so that we have to.
I'd be fine just waiting for that for next year then.
Which hopefully the council can give us. This direction.
Yeah, maybe.
Hopefully
they'll
maybe they
do
say
both,
yes
but,
to
you know,
both,
three-
but-
Yeah.
Always hope
They went
for the one you want.
You know, sculpture out of metal or stone is gonna cost that.
It's expensive.
It's really
So
great.
unless they want plastic all the
Really nice.
time, then that's, that'll give us a indicator there of what direction we go then too. Maybe materials and stuff, cause if they're not gonna pay for stone or metal, then
Yeah,
That
and
changes
so
the parameters.
truly, I guess today, just asking for y'all's direction on,
do we need to vote or do this?
yes.
Okay.
So I guess there's two options here. There is, option number one is, or really moving with this, and I guess either approving that Steeplechase is the location, or us exploring another area, if you want us to explore another area. And then selecting whatever option, it sounds like option two for the second sculpture.
Yeah.
Is what was identified, and I don't know if there's a general consensus on that.
Well, I like that, those options, give one for the east side, one for the west side.
Yeah.
The community feels, torn on that always, what side's getting what, but, so I think it's great that we have one for each side. And both be my option, and then On the locations here, yeah, I prefer option 2 or 3. rather than The original.
You always give us different material options.
Material for the
For the
sculptures.
108,000 for that one, since it's.
We kind of visited that last time on the task force.
Yeah, we did explore that. We did talk to them about maybe providing, because we gave them the options for the different colors. To where even the different colors, it was the same price.
We and the task force ended up feeling that that bronze look actually did tie in well with Laverne Park because of the, stage awning and the park features.
It does.
So,
And it just has depth and it's
Yeah.
not a flat.
So I
Okay,
think
so
we're
can I get, a vote for,
For what?
We can, I guess there's two we need to do. Two
yeah, but what,
items.
if everybody agrees with what she said, we could just vote on that and then we done, or if you want other options.
And she said to go with both.
Yeah, so I guess you never made an official motion.
Make an
right?
official motion to say, said.
I motion to take both of these to the council. And see what their recommendation is of the 4 different options. And then as far as the location for the La Verde Park sculpture. I motion to go. I don't know which option. I prefer option 2 or 3. I don't know if you guys have.
2.
I think, just make a motion of what you want and then.
Yeah, maybe do the first one.
Oh,
Just
yeah.
The
One at a
sculptures to the council.
Got it. I motion to, propose both art sculpture options to the city council.
All those in favor?
Oh,
Aye.
second,
Aye.
second,
Oh,
second,
Oh, second,
Annabelle.
sorry.
Okay.
Now, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Yay.
Motion passes
And then I also
unanimously.
motion for the Dana Parodi sculpture at La Verde Park to be located on option 2 or 3.
I think there's general consensus about 2.
On option 2.
Got a second?
I said.
No.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed, none.
Then we get with steeplechase too, right?
We
So
have
is that,
the steeplechase.
Yes, and then I also motion for Jessica Bell's sculpture piece to be located at Steeplechase.
A second. All those in favor?
I,
Aye. Opposed?
right.
thank you guys, that's, been one of our longest meetings, so.
Last time it was long.
It's not that all pretty. For all.
Yeah, I think we're having more to discuss, so it's taking.
Yeah,
longer.
well, and we're actually,
Yeah, we need 3 motions today.
hey. Yes, we have a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Yeah, I motion to adjourn.
Is this like Olive Garden where like if you never tell them to stop?
And I'm being forever.
Fine.
7:55.
Thank y'all.
Don't be so much fun.
Should sign.
We try.
Well,
They're doing all that steeplechase.
Mhm.
And then Sanford.